a perk. The police pull up, my gun in her purse. The ops pull up, put him on a shirt. Bitch, we came in this world and we looking for murder. Knock your cap off and it's worth of Bobby's murder. Nigga, watch your mouth.
Hello and welcome to the 5th annual Big Road Top 10 Albums of the Year. And this year we are going to start off a little bit different. We are going to start off with no honorable mentions. One, to make it a little bit harder on myself to make the top 10 albums. And two, because we're going to start off with the top 5 singles or songs of the year that did not appear on one of the top 10 albums. Because I know some people don't love listening to whole albums. They just want songs to get on their playlist or whatever. Each person is different. So I thought I would do something a little bit different to appease everyone who enjoys music. So coming at number 5, we had NLE Choppa's Capo. Another banger from NLE Choppa. The man can really make a banger. That's all I can say. He bangs like no other. Next up we have...
Shot at him, I swan they stick at the nigga, the bullets they stronger than Hercules. She on Raxus, in this bitch I'm hard. I got papers, silly X and Xanax bars. We got big extensions that protect my heart.
We have Fish Scale from Youngboy Never Broke Again, or NBA Youngboy. A man who was very busy this year, who is busy almost every year, and that's probably to help feed his many, many children. But on this first little like mini EP he released this year called Color Caesar, we had a song called Fish Scale, which I think was of like probably 100 plus songs he released this year, and that's not even a joke. Probably my favorite, and comes at number 4 on our top 5 songs. Next up we have... Someone off of NASCAR Aloe's American Wasteland. NASCAR Aloe is kind of one of the artists coming up in the trap metal scene, along with Zilla Kami, Sos Moolah from City Morgue, Cameron Ozzy, those guys. And this is kind of the most accessible song on the record, and also the one I like the most. A lot of the other ones are a lot more screamo, really heavy metal, but this one really fits into the mainstream while still having the cool qualities I enjoy in a trap metal song, like really hard-hitting bass and rough vocals. Next up we Next up we have Love-Hate Letter to Alcohol off Post Malone's new album, 12 Karat Toothache. An album I didn't love. It didn't make my top 10 list, obviously. Every song I liked, I really liked. But some of the songs, especially this one of Doja Cat, that was the most popular for whatever reason. I hated. Love that the song I like the most is the third least most popular. And it is by far the best song. Maybe I find it a little personal, but it is very deep, moving, in the style of Posty that I love the most, as in like Stay With Me and Broken Whiskey Glass from his other records beforehand. And it came in at number 2. But at number 1, we have a man who really owned this year in a lot of ways. And this is my favorite song from him. He released a lot of music too.
It's my daddy.
Had to turn my flow, yeah. Had to change the tone. Had to turn my diamonds, yeah. They smaking head to toe. About what you saying, yeah. Just shut up and let me go. Riding in that beat, you let that talk the truth. Rowdy, but that what is on me.
We have Talk by Yeet. A man who, when I first heard him, I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? And then I listened to him again. I'm like, what the fuck? I still don't get this. And then the third time I listened to him, I'm like, alright, I get this. And unfortunately, none of his records appear on my top 10 list. He released a couple this year because they were all really long and they kind of started to get samey to a certain extent. But when he makes like one of these really well-sounding rage beats work, it is fuego. I'd say even better than Playboy Cardi. And this is my favorite from him this year, Talk. So with that out of the way, we can get into our actual top 10 album list. Starting off at number 10, we have Future's I Never Liked You. And I actually have always liked Future, but one of his records has never made one of my top 10 lists, especially since, well, one of his records made my top 10 of the decade list, but never one made my top 10 of the year list, because I think a lot of his recent records have been hit and miss. This one had a couple misses, but strangely enough, the big miss that I disliked the most is the most popular song on the record. But besides that song, I really enjoy this record. He sounds really hungrier than he sounded in a long time. And I think his beat selection has also been more unique than it's been in a long time as well. Specifically on songs that have really cool samples, like Chicken. Chicken sounds really cool. Holy Ghost sounds really cool. I'm On One, the other Drake song, not the one that became really popular, is also really good. And every feature, including Drake on that song, comes with a lot of heat, including He Who Must Not Be Named, who we'll get into more later on this list because he makes a couple appearances. He was everywhere this year. But yeah, Gunna and Thugga on Foreign Nut, which is just a ridiculous song in itself, but they make it work somehow. Very fun record from Future, including the some of the bonus tracks that were on the deluxe version. I guess he didn't call it a deluxe. I think he just updated the album with more songs, one featuring 42 Doug, who was also, I think that's probably one of my favorite songs on the record. But overall, great record from Future. Coming in at number 10 though, because I really hated that most popular Drake song. That's a big miss.
When you in the feeling, you innocent while you over here. Body count, protocol, body count, losing count.
Coming in at number 9, we have Rebel vs. Rowdy, our mandatory New York drill album of the list, as I've gotten really into that genre, as you could have seen from my recent lists featuring Pop Smoke and 22GZ. But this one featuring the newly released Rowdy Rebel and a fun little concept album as he looks at the two sides of his personality, being the rebel and the rowdy, and he shows them with, I think, the rowdy side being the more, oh look, it's even split into the 2 discs on Spotify. I didn't notice that the first time I went through it. But the disc 1 is the rowdy side, which is more the drill trap, make a banger. And then the disc 2 is the more rebel side, which is the kind of auto crooning side that I didn't love as much. I guess a lot of people didn't love these 3 songs as much, but they're not bad if you're looking for kind of a more auto croony in the style of Boogie with the Hoodie, who shows up really well on the New York song, way better than he sounded on his own record. And Fivio Foreign also makes a great appearance. His record was the other New York drill record that almost made this list, but I think his overall just sounded way too produced because Kanye, or He Who Must Not Be Named, executive produced it. And I think Rowdy came with the more organic sound, especially how hungry he sounds getting right out of prison and stepping right back into the game. Unlike a certain somebody who also got released from prison who didn't get featured on this album. Someone who I feel like through sheer just association should have appeared on it. There is no Bobby Shmurda. And Shmurda himself released a record, and there is no way it was going to appear on this list because it's low-key terrible. There's one really good song on it, but there's also that weird, like, wannabe strip club thought booty clapping banger that is borderline unlistenable.
Ain't nothing but a hoochie daddy. Ain't nothing but a hoochie daddy.
But Rowdy Rebel, unfortunately, did way better than Shmurda this year. Maybe Shmurda can come back next year harder. But Rowdy owned this year for sure. He made as big of a comeback coming out of jail as he can. And this is my favorite song.
They don't shoot back when I wound Nina.
that.
Next up, we have Only Built for Infinity Links, the duo album between Quavo and Takeoff, an album that obviously has a lot more meaning now, and that did come into play in my ranking. Even though I was very pleasantly surprised by the album itself, I put the Migos Culture 3 on my last top 10 list, kind of as like a note saying I like this album a lot more than other people did. I'm not sure why it's not getting as much praise. I think if you go back and watch my video, you can see me talk about it more. But this one surprised me more than that, and just how good it was, especially since Offset's usually what I would lean to be my favorite Migo member. But the singles were what really impressed me. Hotel Lobby and Us vs. Them with Gucci Mane. Us vs. Them, which features a really cool interpolation, I believe, of 100 Shots from Dolph. Could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like. And then there was Big Stunna with Birdman, and Birdman's such a clown that I kind of originally just wrote the song off, and his verse is a bit silly, but it's kind of short at the end. He talks about himself way too much, but Takeoff's verse on this is just, I mean, it makes the song itself, you gotta add it to any playlist. And that's what makes it such a bummer that we tragically lost Takeoff last year. And I think it does add more value to this album that he put out such a great chemistry-oriented album with his uncle. And I think overall his legacy is well cemented and will be remembered very positively. It's just nothing about that story is good. But Only Built for Infinity Links has banger after banger, bars in the captions with the Outcast interpolation, Tony Stark making a song about Iron Man sound really dope. Another good collaboration with Mustard after the one on Mustard's collab album from, I believe, 2 years ago. That was obviously a banger. And just overall a great album. Rest in peace, Takeoff.
In the jungle and they got a coat. I bet I come out with a mean. I bet I do this shit for the fam, cause this shit bigger than me. Big.
Next up, we have Too High to Die, the solo record from Sos Moolah of City Morgue fame. An album that is definitely not for everybody, because this is Sos Moolah kind of delving into the rage beat territory, and I guess you could even argue might be the most unthought out album ever made, as he screams a lot of the same lyrics repeatedly on songs, and it's just a lot of noise and random bullshit. But my God, if you throw this on and you're feeling it, it hits like no other. Him going, swerve, got this, swerve, got me in the nerk, and so smooth skirt. Kind of like that. And it's good. It is actually really good. It really at first feels like this is brainless nonsense. I love how the only feature on it is from Lil Tracy, who actually drops a really good feature. He doesn't really dive as deep into the nonsensical rage sound that Moolah is giving, so it makes the song a little more unusual than other ones. But overall, every beat slaps. The songs that I didn't add were where his lyrics started to get a little too nonsensical. But Yakuza 2000, this was the single, is a really big banger. But my favorite is this one. Give it a listen. If you like this one, then you'll like the whole rest of the record. And if you don't like it, then maybe this is a skip for you. But I enjoyed it. And I'm excited to see what he does in the future. If City Morgue is really breaking up, we'll see. Next up, we have Shiesty Season Certified, which I was a bit confused about at first, because I think this is like a deluxe version of Pooh Shiesty Season, or maybe it's just like he decided to make a double album but still name it Shiesty Season, and the actual album is Certified, because it only says Certified on it, but he, for like streaming numbers, he added it to Shiesty Season. I don't really know. I'm just considering it's own album, because never has a record ever changed my opinion on an artist faster than this one, and that is why it's so high on this list, because I was just taken aback. I've always thought Pooh Shiesty was kind of meh. I made a joke before, like, who's really going to be talking to their friends like, hey yo, you hear that new Pooh Shiesty? Yeah, that new Pooh Shiesty be hitting, because it just sounds ridiculous. But every single song on this Certified edition, which goes up to track 14, Murder School, I guess you would know because Shiesty Season intros the song afterwards, is very good. And it's kind of like a DJ Khaled album of sorts, because almost every song has a feature except the last two. The last two are both really good, though, the solo Pooh Shiesty songs. But every feature really comes to play. And it's a really good cast list here with Gucci Mane, Uzi Vert, Lil Baby, G Herbo, ESTG, 42 Doug, who have really been hitting this year. And we'll see a little bit more of them later. Spoiler alert. Also, unfortunately, the late Big Scar. All these guys off of Gucci's new 1017 record label, which he did a great job promoting all these guys. And he's made a fan of me of Shiesty, who I was not really a big fan of before. Or maybe Shiesty himself made me a fan. And this was just really turned my whole opinion on him around, so I had to put it here. Shout out this song, which is also the only song I have ever liked with Jack Harlow. Well, I guess maybe What's Poppin's alright, but this is a really good Jack Harlow song. So shout out Pooh Shiesty for able to make something out of Jack Harlow.
All my hunters turned to wrecks, all my ladies turned to snacks. SUVs black on SUVs black on black.
Next up, we have Melt My Eyes, See Your Future from Denzel Curry. The full-length studio album follow-up to my favorite album of 2018, and one of my favorite albums, I think, of all time, really, Taboo. And this was his follow-up, and I was a little nervous at first, little suspicious, especially with the singles being Walkin', which eventually really grew on me, especially the Key Glock remix that came out. But this song with T-Pain, I really don't like. I think it's probably the worst song on the album, which is a shame because the T-Pain Denzel Curry collab sounds amazing, and that's why this album's not higher. But once the album actually came out, every song that wasn't a single blew me away. I'm like, all right, Denzel, I don't know why I doubted him. He came through like he usually does. Especially excited about this crazy big collab with Rico Nasty, JID, all these other guys, Josiah, which I guess came from some random studio session. They also have a song on, I believe, Josiah's album. I forget what it's called. Make War. That came from the same studio session where they're all like just vibing, and I think that song was like written in like 10 minutes. It's really good, and I'm really happy that the singles were just kind of worrying distractions and that the full project came through, and I'm very happy with Denzel's current direction. He's getting a little poppier. He's leaving the kind of more dark underground emo sound of Raider Clan behind him. I think that was more expressed in Taboo, and he's moving more in a direction that he wants to fit in. So we'll see how he keeps going, but I did enjoy it.
I don't think I want an X-Wing, I'm just on to the next thing. Growing up I didn't have the best things, now my diamonds on my...
Next up, we have Homicide Lifestyle from Homicide Gang. And this year was the year of the rage beats, with Playboy Cardi and all his children starting this new wave that is just taking over. Obviously Yeet, but then we had the people that are actually signed to Playboy Cardi, like Ken Carson and Destroy Lonely, both who feature on this album and release their own albums. but I don't think anyone did that sound as well as these two did on this specific project. And I mean that very much so, because I think their album is way leagues better than every other output that came out this year. So much so that I put it at this place in the list. And this is just like the banger album of the year. Every track you could just throw on at a party and get everyone jumping, hyped up, let's go. And they're all short, sweet tracks. They don't overstay their welcome. And I really knew nothing about the Homicide Gang before this record came out. And I saw some dude on my Twitter feed tweeting about him like, this record is the one. I'm like, all right, sure, I'll give it a listen. And he's right, this is the one if you're looking for that rage beat, new wave Playboy Cardi sound that was birthed out of Whole Lotta Red. Look no further, because this is the best follow-up to it that I've heard, and I think will probably ever come, at least for now.
We slide our block behind 10, yeah. We slide our block behind 10, yeah. We slide our block behind 10, yeah. We slide our block behind 10.
Coming in next, we have the Metro Boomin album, Heroes and Villains, the follow-up to Not All Heroes Wear Capes, which also made my top 10 album list of yesteryear. And I think that this is probably the best sequel we could have asked for Metro. I don't know if I love it as much as his original project, but that's because that project is just outstanding. That's not to say that this project itself is just not outstanding. It's just like comparing caviar to truffles, because, you know, I'm a rich bitch and I love my extravagant food. But just, I guess I'll first point out the Wish You Were Here album cover reference, and just every song on this record is a great collaboration of beats and vocals. He picked the right people for the job. I guess if I had any issue is that we didn't get as diverse of a feature list as we did in Not All Heroes Wear Capes. Like, we don't have any Kodak or Gucci, but we get a lot of Thug, Future, and 21, and they all come through very well. And I just think that Metro is at the top of his game with this one. If you didn't know, he had a big tragedy in his life, and I think he put a lot of his passion into making this album as great as it could be, and he definitely came through. I don't know if anyone can top him at this point. He is the modern Timbaland. Metro knows how to make a banging beat, and this was my favorite song. This one was actually also kind of hard to choose which one was my favorite, but I think this one overall, maybe because I have a little soft spot for the artist featured on this one. So give that a listen. I'm sure you guys probably already heard this whole album because it is just everywhere and it is amazing.
I gotta keep them drugs around. Gotta keep a couple plugs around.
Coming in at our penultimate album of the year, we have It's Almost Dry from Pusha T. Pusha T is obviously a very well-respected artist. Signed to Kanye's label. He's had a lot of great production over the years. He's also from the famous Clips duo of very early 2000s fame. And he's always released good albums that I've always enjoyed. Some songs, some of the songs are like maybe too above me, too artsy fartsy for me. But this album is like the perfect mix of the kind of lyrical miracle mixed with the hard-hitting coke rap that Pusha T is obviously well known for, mixed with like the Kanye-styled sample-heavy beats. And it's just like the perfect serendipitous mixture of peanut butter and chocolate and everything in between to make probably one of my favorite albums from a big mainstream artist of the year. Unfortunately, Kendrick's album, as you have seen, is not made the list so far and is not going to be number one. I just don't think that album had the replay value of Pusha T's It's Almost Dry. And there is a lot of good stuff on here that really is varied too. It doesn't really feel samey at all. Specifically, this Scrape It Off song with Lil Uzi Vert and Don Toliver feels really different. We get two songs with the Mr. West. As I said, he would appear on this list more than once because That man knows how to get around. And just overall, I really loved this record. The only song I didn't really feel was the Clips reunion and whatever. I'm sure other people were ecstatic about it. The album that I had the most difficulty picking a favorite song out of, and I would just recommend giving it a listen if you were like thinking, Pusha T, he's always making like music that everyone's always claiming is really good. This album is really good, so I would just give it a listen if you were like maybe holding off just because he usually gets a lot of praise and you're like, whatever. This one is it.
About shit, why would I wanna hold you down when I know you now the past is your go-to now?
Alright, and coming in at number 1, we actually have an album that I can't show you on Spotify because the big Spotifyers, the big heads of Spotify, they don't want you to listen to this album. They think it's too radical. They think it's too disruptive, too boundary pushing. So I'm gonna have to go to SoundCloud to show you guys the number 1 album, Donda 2, baby, from the ultimate disruptor himself, Kanye West. And boy, what does this album do that I can say about it? I can say that it is not the number 1 album. Yeah, of course I was just fucking with you. The real number 1 is Last Ones Left, the collab album from 42 Dugg and ESTG. A collab album that has the chemistry of probably some of the greatest of all time. Batman and Robin, Jesus and Judas, Heisenberg and Meth. All amazing pairs, but no one has the chemistry that these two have, and it took me very much by surprise. 'Cause, I'd heard their songs here and there, their features here and there. Obviously, there were a lot of their features on this album list that you had seen before, but this album came out before a lot of those songs did, so I was just excited to hear those songs afterwards, and it probably boosted some of those albums up. But this album came out actually pretty early this year, and when I heard it, I'm like, I got my number 1. It really was that good on first listen, and I just really can't explain how well these two sound together. They really mesh, they really mix, and it's a decently long record too, and it's just, each one has the energy, the passion that you really want to see from younger artists who are up and coming in the game, and they made some of the best bangers of the whole year on this one. Especially this just like first 4 stretch of songs is insane. Give it a listen if you haven't. It's kind of gone under the radar for the most part. See, a lot of these are songs that were not played as much as some of the other records I've shown on this list. But this is really probably one of my favorite albums that has come out definitely this decade. Not that the decade's been that long. Probably my favorite collab album that's came out in the last couple decades. Sorry, Metro Boomin. I don't think this compares to any of his like 21 Savage and Big Sean collabs. I think it's above them. Give this a shot. I will give you my favorite song, and if this doesn't get you pumping iron, I know what will.
Ice bowls, I say I got 'em. iPhones, I still got 'em.
Alright. Hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 albums of the year list. This is my playlist of every song I saved this year. You can find the link to my Spotify in the description. And I will see you guys in a top movies and worst movies of this year. I'm still kind of brainstorming exactly how I'm going to do it. But I figured I'm a film major. Might as well make a movie list. It's going to be a bit different than probably a lot of other movie lists, but it should be fun. So see you guys in that one. Hope you enjoyed the album list. Peace out. Bye.
For my life, can't say that, girl. Don't tell me you could say that shit. All she want is payback for the way I always play that shit.